Hey guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
We're two lifelong friends and musicians, but when we're not playing gigs, we like to talk games.
And today on the Game and Gig podcast, we're talking about leaks for the successor to the Nintendo Switch. When do we think Nintendo will finally announce this damn thing? And Nintendo is suing the creators of Pokemon with guns.
All right, guys. Well, if you're new around here, welcome. We are a viewer-driven podcast. We read and react to your comments on our polls. Today, we're starting things off a little different because something huge happened. It's not every day that we get a giant leak letting us know what the Switch 2, or the successor of the Switch, what it's going to look like. And that is what happened this week. It is wild.
Yeah, so you also just kind of confused me. I've actually been just shocked, stunned, and just overall shook this week because I've been seeing all these YouTube videos come about with people saying, switch to this, switch to that, switch to this. And I'm just sitting at the house saying, like, what are y'all talking about? What is the Switch 2? And then I finally did some really creative Googling and realized that there were leaks for the successor to the Nintendo Switch. And it all made sense.
Right. These leaks actually do not tell us the name of the Switch. That's the one thing that we don't know about yet. Well, there's a couple things we don't know about, but these leaks do give us a really good look at the general concept for the Switch 2. We've got not only images of a kind of disconfigured, not put together Switch 2 unit, a real one, but we also have renders, sort of like 3D modeled renders of all the parts of it.
Yeah. So first of all, before we throw one of these up on screen, Gampaw, do you think these are reliable? Do you think they're real?
I do think they're real for a couple reasons. Number one, they match all of the rumors that have been circulating over the past year or two. In terms of like all the things that kept coming up over and over and over. People say, yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. These match all those like perfectly, which is the fact that it's basically just the same thing as a Switch. A new way of attaching the Joy-Con. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. The 8-inch screen. Basically, every single rumor that's come out, this just confirms it, and I think that definitely lends towards it. And everyone who has more information than me and is smarter than me, who have looked at these, said, yeah, these look legit. They think this is real. So I do think these are absolutely real.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of inclined to agree with you, and the main reason that I think that is because we don't just have renders. We actually do have a couple of photographs, so, and I've looked at my Switch enough to know that the photographs that they've taken are not exactly the same. That's what I have.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not. It's not just the pictures of a Switch.
Right, exactly. Well, you want to throw one of these up on screen? You just want to jump into it?
Let's look at the first one. Yeah, I thought the first one we could look at would be the one that is just an actual photo of basically the back side of the Switch. It's kind of opened up and it's got the shells for the Joy-Con. And at first glance, you might look at this and say, this just looks like a Switch.
Yeah, sure. You definitely could. But I think if you look at these Joy-Con, they don't look quite as flat maybe as the regular Joy-Con. Like they look a little more curvy on the edges.
Potentially. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know. You might be right about that. They may have a little bit more curvature towards the edges. For sure. The thing I notice about it is we have an extra button on the right Joy-Con, which is up on the top there. That's something that, again, that was one of those rumors that's been floating around for a while now, is that it has an extra button on the right Joy-Con.
Right.
At this point, nobody knows what that button does. Nobody.
Except us, and we're going to give you the inside scoop right now.
Okay. Do you really have... I have a guess.
I know you have a guess. Yeah, we've talked about it before, how your suspicion is that this could be for like a remote docking kind of situation.
Yeah, like a wireless docking. Like I could see this being a button that you press if you want to like cast your screen or to make it so that it's, split between the dock and, in your hand and then on the TV.
Right.
I don't know that that's going to happen, but I don't see any reason why it can't be that option. So, I don't know. Wireless docking, I still think could be the gimmick.
I think that would be a great gimmick because that's a gimmick that I could easily ignore if I didn't need it, unless they started shoehorning it into everything. But I don't think they would because then it couldn't be like a true standalone portable, Right. So I'm not really that scared about that. And I think that would give them a great way to like give us maybe like some DS and 3DS maybe on the eShop,
Right.
or I mean on NSO eventually. And who knows, maybe far enough into the future, maybe we can get like Wii U up in here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think would be the idea, is that it leads to the potential that every single system that Nintendo has ever made, maybe with some exceptions, but for the vast majority, could be played on this Switch 2. Every single one. DS games could be played because you could have the bottom screen in your hands and the top screen on your TV.
Right.
Obviously 3DS games as well. Wii U games potentially. I mean, it could be everything. And then if you just treat it normally, well, it's all the consoles that we can currently play on them. So it just really has some great possibilities.
Yeah, I agree. You want to go to the next pick?
Real quick before we move on, we should point out that this does have a different way of attaching the Joy-Con. We'll talk more about that later because we do have some pictures.
There's a better pick.
They give us a little more.
later.
Yeah, there's better pictures of that later on. So yeah.
All right, moving on. So this is kind of a top-down and then just kind of a straight-on shot of the whole thing put together. And I had like two like immediate reactions to this. First, I was like, "Oh my god, it just looks like a Switch." That's like that's the first thing I thought. I was like, "Oh my god, it just looks like a Switch." And then my next reaction was like, "Oh my god, it just looks like a Switch."
Yeah.
This is like it like it's what I want, really, is for it to just be a better Switch. So my immediate reaction, I think, was a little dumb. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have looked at this and said it's boring. Like, this is the most boring console upgrade that Nintendo has ever done. And I agree with that. I think it is super boring.
Yeah.
I think it's super safe. But as a person who wants Nintendo to do well, and I want to continue to bask in all the glory of Nintendo, I think it's the right move. It may be the boring move. It may be the safe move. But I think it is absolutely the way to go. That's why I want them to call it Switch 2. I think it's the boring, safe move, but if they call it Switch 2, it's just super clear. Everyone already knows what the Switch does. They love the concept. You don't need much more than that.
Yeah. And, I do agree. We got a live comment here from Heck who said it looks a little bland. It does look a little bland. But, I mean, this is also just a 3D mock-up. It's going to look way cooler and shinier once it's in our hands. But I will say two complaints that I have looking at this is, one, I still ain't going to have no D-pad on the left Joy-Con.
Nope.
That upsets me, but I'm not surprised. And then two, I don't know about this yet, but these triggers look not analog to me. They look like they have short travel like the regular ones, like the Joy-Con do now.
Yeah, they look like they're digital, like just basically just regular buttons. I think you're right. I think that there have been some. I don't know if we have a better picture later on. We kind of do in the next one, and we'll go to that in a second. But it could be that they have squeezed in some sort of analog trigger, but I kind of doubt it. Although that would be something that would make sense for them to upgrade and do, because that's been one of the big complaints about the Switch, is that the triggers are not analog, and so it stops you from enjoying a lot of games that rely on analog triggers. Obviously not many, but racing games are one that comes to mind.
Yes.
And I mean, like, so many, not just racing games, but lots of open world games that have you drive cars rely on analog triggers.
Yes.
And so
I don't know why they wouldn't put them. It really kind of confuses me. Maybe they're just thinking they'll be on a Pro controller. Maybe they're going to be there on a different controller, and they're just thinking if you need them, use that. But I don't know.
Well, they're not on the Pro controller. I mean, the Pro controller doesn't have analog triggers.
Well,
so.
I mean, maybe a new generation of Pro controller.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. I think if these end up being non-analog triggers, I think that the Pro controller will also not have analog triggers. Just a guess.
I think you're right, but I don't understand that.
That
being said,
I'm
not like a racing guy, so I mean, I guess that's fine. But
racing
when
games
they eventually
are the thing that comes in.
When they put GTA 5 on this thing, I'm gonna, it'll make driving harder, like you said. So
yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure they've already run across this. I mean, lots of games, what they'll do is when you're playing, it basically is just you just have your foot. I mean, I play this way anyway. When I'm doing car games, basically it's either all the way down or up. I very rarely feather the trigger, but so it doesn't really matter to me that much.
And nobody's shocked to hear that. First of all,
no,
but that's all. That's pretty much what I do too. So I mean, like, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I do think if this is going to be around for the next like 7 years, maybe they should stick some analog triggers on it.
Right. One thing we can't tell by this picture is the scale, because they've basically scaled everything up. That could mean that the buttons are a little larger. It could mean that the joysticks are a little larger, which would be really, really nice. It's hard to tell looking at this. In fact, looking at this, it may look like the joysticks are slightly smaller than a normal Switch. So it may be that they haven't scaled them
Surely
up.
to God, not.
I don't know. Maybe that they haven't. I'm saying, like, because the whole unit is scaled up, if they kept the same joysticks,
they would be smaller. Yeah.
But I know that's another complaint that people often have, is that the joysticks are too small, they have too little travel, and that the buttons are kind of small and close together. So, I don't know. They've scaled this up. It might be bigger. We really can't tell from this picture. I haven't gone and, like, pixel counted and lined it up to see.
Yeah. Well, I haven't either, but we've got some live comments coming in here. So, Kit said, cool to see a charge port on top and bottom. And then Dan said, USB-C on top is a great addition. And then Heck continued that train and said, it's like they envisioned someone using it.
Yeah. I think that's something, from this top view that shouldn't be overlooked, is we've got a USB-C port on the top. Now, we know there's one also on the bottom, too, we can see here. So we don't know exactly what this is going to be used for. It may just be that it's there for alternate forms of charging. Say you want to play while you're holding if you want to hold the unit and charge it from the top instead of the bottom, that may be more comfortable. Or if you want to play in tabletop mode, now you can actually charge it while you play it, whereas if it's on the bottom, you can't do that. Right.
And, Nintendo says with the current Switch that you have to use their charger, or it'll brick your unit. And they don't sell that thing with the right angle plug. And it's very weird. Like, if you're trying to, like, rest it on your lap or something while you're charging it, it's just not good because you're putting strain on that port.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that having this up here, even if it's just an alternate way to charge your Switch, I think it's great. It makes total sense for them to do it. And then it could also maybe be utilized by, some accessories. I mean, I don't know what accessories, but it just gives more options for accessory makers because they have two ports, one on the top and one on the bottom. So,
correct.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's move on to the Joy-Con.
Okay, we got some good close-up shots of the apparent Joy-Con successors.
Yeah.
And this pretty much confirms you ain't got no analog trigger there because you can see how much travel that bad boy's got.
Yeah, it doesn't look like much. So I'm kind of thinking you're correct. There's probably not an analog trigger here. Although it does look like this bump is maybe a little bit larger than it's on the Switch currently, but not a whole lot. And it may be because we have a really interesting giant button on the back.
Yeah, we do.
This is one of the weirder things. And as far as we can tell, that's the button that you're going to press to release the Joy-Con from the tablet portion of the Switch.
Yeah, I think so, most likely. And I didn't have a problem with the buttons, but I was also really used to them. I think I did have a problem with them the first few times. Yeah. So having a bigger button is probably a good call.
Well, yeah, I think a bigger button, but also the way this Joy-Con is connecting is going to be completely different. You see there's no rails.
Right.
Instead, we have this little portion that is going to insert into the sides, and apparently it will connect via magnets. And my big concern when I first heard that the Joy-Con were going to connect via magnetism, which is a rumor that's been going on for a long time, was that I was afraid that if you like dropped or like if you just kind of wiggled it, that they'd kind of pop off. What I didn't think is, you just make it so part of it just inserts in so that it's really kind of held in anyway, and then you use the magnets to kind of keep them there. I think this is really, really nice. Very elegant.
Yeah, I mean, I got no problem with this. I mean, the Legion Go already uses magnets, and I'd seen people on YouTube talk about how good they felt. So I wasn't worried when they said they were using magnets. But, yeah, and I'm still not. I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah, and we also get a view here of these two Joy-Con. We can see that I think they're called SL and SR, but they're basically the trigger buttons when you have the Joy-Con.
ZL and ZR.
Is it ZL?
No,
I think it's SL.
Z is the... no, you're right. Z is the triggers.
I think it's SL. SL and SR.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know what S, but they're basically the triggers when you... or I guess the shoulder buttons when you're playing with the one single Joy-Con. They've made these much larger which is great. I think they originally intended everyone when they're using the Joy-Con on their own. They thought people probably aren't going to use those with using the little rail that connects and gives you the better buttons. Mm-hmm. But people are lazy. So it's better to have some big honking buttons on here that'll be much better to press.
Yes, I hated using Joy-Con as single controllers. I don't expect to love this either. But those little
They
buttons,
will be bigger, though.
Those little buttons sucked. And I did have the rails, and I was like, okay, this does make it quite a bit better. But I
playing
also
something like
never
Mario
put them on.
Kart. Yeah. If you're playing something like Mario Kart without the rails, oh my gosh, horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah. So this should be better. I've seen some concerns with people that they are worried that you can see that there are these exposed pins on the inside of where it seems like the Joy-Con make a connection there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I really don't know what they were worried that that those pins may get damaged, after continued, taking on and off the Joy-Con. I'm not so sure. They just kind of look like regular old connector pins to me. Probably very similar to what you do if you were putting a cartridge on and off. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I got no idea why you would. I mean, I don't know what this necessarily does or is exactly, but I don't see why you'd be so worried about it already.
And then we have a live comment here from Heck who said Nintendo just make a slide on top to the Joy-Cons that have actual triggers. Like they do with the current ones. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll have a thing that you can slide. Like a slide on top. Like, like like they have now.
Yeah.
The thing that slides on and makes it so that you have better buttons or better triggers. I guess they won't be real triggers. I guess they'll be more like, shoulder buttons, but they'll be better.
Yeah, I thought Heck was still talking about the analog trigger thing.
Oh, no, yeah. I assume that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So we have one more image that is shows the scale of this new Switch 2 compared to the original Switch and the difference in size, which is,
quite
to
a bit.
me, this really puts it into perspective of how big this thing is.
Yeah, this thing, it looks ginormous when you put it in front. In this particular image, it looks huge. The Legion Go, I keep thinking about the Legion Go. It has the biggest screen, I think, of the popular PC handhelds, and it may be an 8-inch screen, but it looks massive.
I just looked it up, and because I wanted to compare, the PlayStation Portal has an 8-inch screen as well, so we can use, and I have one right here in front of me. So it is as big as this.
Gotcha.
So that's the same size. So it isn't giant. It's going to be nice and hefty, but it seems like it's about the perfect size. I love the screen on the Portal, and if they can get a very similar screen and a very similar size, I think it's going to be fantastic.
I'm afraid this thing's going to be so big and flat, you could use it to play disc golf.
We probably can.
It looks like it'd catch some wind.
Yeah. It's going to be big. It's going to be big. It's going to be flat. It's not going to be as thick as I think a lot of people were expecting. I think a lot of people were thinking, about the thickness of like a Steam Deck or something. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't seem to be what we're going to get. They seem to have gone for a more wide, approach instead of thick.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned the Steam Deck because I think that's the logical comparison here. Mm-hmm. And we did get some leaked specs as well. It basically seemed like gibberish to me, but the consensus that I read online was that this seemed like PS4 Pro equivalent-ish.
Which isn't that what everyone says about the Steam Deck as well?
Pretty much. I think people say PS4 Pro, but I think they say it a little optimistically. I think it's a little closer to a regular PS4 than that.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, if that's true, if this thing really is a little more powerful than a Steam Deck, that's some cool engineering.
Oh, yeah. It is super cool. Which leads us to the question of price and what is this thing going to cost and when will they release it? Mm-hmm. I think these renders, to be clear about these renders were done by a guy to mock up to show us what it looked like. These are not official Nintendo renders.
Right.
He basically took the knowledge and he had a unit and he based these renders off of it because he wanted to show us exactly what they were. That being said, they appear to be legit. It does seem like everything makes sense. Nothing looks off. Everything seems exactly the way you'd expect it to.
Yeah. And it almost seems too convenient. Like for those to be the leaks. Like the leaks are what everybody said. Like that seems a little too convenient if it wasn't for the actual pictures.
Yeah, we've got actual pictures. Now, and that being said, from what I've heard, everyone's saying that these pictures are a few like iterations old. Apparently this isn't the newest version of the Switch 2. There may be one or two versions later on, but as they like worked on it, this is like a prototype essentially.
So the real one's got analog triggers. That's what you're telling me.
I mean, they do make changes like that. That happen really late. I mean, like think about the Wii U. When the Wii U was first shown, it was like announced, shown off. In the very first images they showed of the Wii U being used, it didn't have regular like joysticks. It had the circle pads, just like the 3DS does. And then they changed that after the fact. So like changes like that do happen fairly late sometimes. So you never know.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, and we're going to talk about when we think we might get an announcement to help us, satiate our appetite a little bit. But there are some conversations going on live here. Let's see. Heck was saying that most of this stuff was stuff he was hoping to see with a Switch Pro update. And then Dan, in reference to us saying how thin it was, said they don't have any cutting-edge tech to fit in there, so they don't need to make it so thick. And I think those are, for one, the Switch Pro thing, like I totally understand. That's kind of what I wanted for a Switch Pro too. But what we haven't seen is the dock. What kind of cool stuff can the dock do to make this even better? I'm still really curious about that. And I would also argue with you, Dan, that the fact that it's so thin is the cool tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome that it's thin. I think they've obviously trying to keep the exact same like ergonomics of the Switch, which one could argue isn't a great thing.
I don't know why you would want to do that. That's the one thing from the Switch you shouldn't copy.
But they've decided these ergonomics are what they want. They're really kind of doubling down on the fact of having these attachable Joy-Cons, and they want them to be comfortable, used on their side, just one of them. And I do think that the more ergonomic you make it, the more that those Joy-Con have to be bulkier, and the less comfortable and the worse they would be turn on their side used as a single Joy-Con. So there probably are some trade-offs there,
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and they definitely they don't want to hurt that ability for you to hand it to your little brother and play Mario Kart. And some ergonomic like curves on them might do that.
Right, and I'm sure we've got, people who make these Switch grips, they're probably just celebrating right now because they know they're staying in business. Like for example, what's the one that we use that we love so
Satisfy.
much? Satisfy, yeah.
Yeah,
Gosh,
Satisfy. I know you're watching this. You need to pay us because you're the first people I thought of when I saw this image. I was like, oh my God, I'm still going to have to buy a Satisfy grip. This image of this flat-ass Switch, that's the first thing I thought.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an elegant solution. It's kind of a shame that you have to buy a grip for it. But at the same time, it's like, it's not a bad solution. It still works pretty well. And I don't hate using a Switch by itself without a grip. I definitely prefer to use it with a grip. Definitely.
Yeah.
And once you have a grip, it's hard to go back. But
I can't do it.
I can definitely still use it.
Yeah, I definitely cannot and do not intend to for very long.
But to kind of go back to the joke Dan left earlier about how there's no cutting edge tech, if all the specs are believed, this is going to be fairly powerful for a handheld, even compared to like other handheld PCs. Like this is going to be fairly comparable. We compared it to the Steam Deck. Obviously, the Steam Deck's a few years old now, but that's still pretty good for Nintendo.
Yeah, and I think it's a little stouter than the Steam Deck, from what people are saying. So, that would make me think it's more like an Ally, or I don't know if it would be Ally X. That depends on the battery, I guess. But and how much of a difference is there between a PS4 Pro and a PS5? And how
Not
many
much.
games? I mean, come like honestly,
Well, I mean, it's not so much what's the difference between them, because there is a difference. The real question is, what kind of difference do you get with games? Like, is
Right.
there even a discernible difference from the games that you get on PS4, even just base PS4 versus PS5? And the answer to that question we've seen this generation is not really.
yeah.
In some few select games, sure, they maybe feel like the next gen, but most games that I've played don't feel discernibly different from last generation in any way.
Facts.
Yeah. We also should bring up the fact that this is going to be using DLSS upscaling.
Yes.
So it may be that it can punch above its weight class just through that.
Well, and I think people are saying that the specs say PS4 Pro equivalent before that. So, you're talking PS4 Pro stacked DLSS on top of it. I think we get our 4K docked. I really do.
I do too. I think we're going to get 4K docked. I really do. And I think that this 8-inch screen is going to be a 1080p screen, just like what you see in the PlayStation Portal.
Same.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 1080. So
Yeah.
I think we're getting 1080 handheld, 4K docked, even though none of this is confirmed. But I think that's what we're going to get.
So I'm basically over here salivating and I've just been holding my checkbook for days, just like ready to write the check to to Sakurai, or whoever.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what I want to know, Randy, is when are these people gonna finally get on the Twitter sphere or whatever and drop me a trailer? When is this gonna happen?
Yeah. We put out a whole poll about that, but first, Daniel, you should tell. We like to do a little plug, a little self promotion here between our topics.
I know, and I tried to segue so hard that I forgot I was the one that was even supposed to do that. But it was a good segue. I stand by it. Maybe we'll run it back here in a second. But those of you that are hanging out here on Twitch, you already know we stream on Twitch. But for those of you in YouTube land, and there are numerous, there may be dozens potentially of you, we stream on Twitch multiple times a week. We do it on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'd love for you to come hang out with us. We play a variety of games and usually at least work in Sea of Thieves once a week. So I think you can find a link to that in the description of this podcast, and maybe we'll see you on Twitch.
Yeah, and specifically the podcasts are recorded on Sundays.
Facts.
All right. Yeah. So that really does bring us to the question of, when is Nintendo going to announce this? How much is it going to cost? Like, all those questions. We decided to put the hive mind to it, put out a poll and said, now that the Switch 2 photos and renders have leaked, when do you think Nintendo will officially announce the system?
Yeah, so I thought you were going to give us a prediction before we went straight into the poll. So sorry for that awkward transition. But at 9%, people said very soon, within the next week. And this was posted about 4 days ago, by the way, at the recording of this podcast. 17% said probably within the next month. 52% said closer to the end of the year. And 22% said they will wait until next year.
Yeah, and I will say that my prediction was that it was going to be within the next week or so. I would have been one of those people voting in the front top. Now, we technically do have a few days left before it's within a week, But
Yeah.
I kind of still think it's going to be very soon.
I do too. I think we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and they're going to have overnighted us a trailer. That's what I think.
I don't know about that. I feel like it's always a Tuesday. Why is it always a Tuesday when they announce these kind of things?
Well, Randy, this podcast is going to air on Monday.
Oh, well, you're right.
How do you know I wasn't just, speaking from future Daniel?
You just give me a big brain move. Yeah, that could be it. I don't know. A lot of people are saying closer to the end of the year. That's what most people are saying. That would make sense. What do you
guess.
think? So you think it's going to be soon, right?
I would have also said within the next week, but I also knew that was really wishful thinking because I was on fall break from school and I was like, this will be perfect,
Yeah.
So I just voted with my heart,
Yeah.
But my brain said it could have been a little longer than that. But now I kind of do think I still fall either in one of those top two categories. I don't think it's going to be that close to the end of the year, and I don't think it's going to be next year.
Yeah. I mean, the rumors have been that it's going to be September. September's running out.
Yes,
the rumors were that big, that double, where it had the partner direct and the indie world, that got pushed into the end of August so that they could have September open so that they could do the reveal of their next console. We're getting to the end of September. I mean, I don't know. I have some ideas, and we have some comments on this, and they'll kind of evoke my ideas. I don't want to get there too early. So let's go ahead and go into some comments here.
Okay. Well, our first comment comes to us from Livia Reaper, who said, within the next week, obviously, they moved the last Nintendo Direct forward to August so they could showcase the Switch 2 now in September instead. They always have their Direct, which is their main event, in September, and all of a sudden the Switch up, yeah, it's coming before the end of next week. Sorry, that was a little stumbly.
I think there was a Y left off. It was supposed to be all of a sudden they switch it up. I think instead of
all of a sudden they switch up. All of a sudden the switch up? That's what you should call the next console, the switch up.
Oh, they don't need to call it that. That's cheesy. That's what they're going to call it. Just because it's cheesy. No, I mean, like, this is basically what I was saying, right?
Yes.
And we are used to September Direct.
Mm-hmm. I'd still love to see one.
Yeah, but you know what I'd love more would be, a console reveal over a Direct. I don't reckon we really need a Direct if we get a console reveal, because a console reveal will basically be a Direct, because when they reveal a console, we're going to see games. Like,
yeah. Well, that's kind of what I meant when you said, when I said we could still get a Direct, I kind of meant we could still get this. It's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, we could get this, yeah. And it's going to feel like, I mean, like, we get so caught up in the fact that we're going to get to see Nintendo's next system soon, which is amazing. But then we got to remember, it's not only that. Like, we kind of have already seen the console, as far as I'm concerned. So at this point, it's going to be the gimmick, but also, what are the games? Like, what games are they going to show alongside the system to sell you on it? Because they have to show games to sell you on it.
I hope we see a new Mario. I will.
I think we're going to see a new 3D
for
Mario.
A new Mario.
I really think we're going to see a new 3D Mario. I think it makes total sense. They obviously featured, that was one of the big reveals with the original Switch, was we saw footage of Mario Odyssey. In that initial, we already knew that Breath of the Wild was going to be there. Remember, like, what games were shown in that initial Switch presentation? I know Mario Odyssey was one of them. That was probably the one big reveal. There was also like
was
Skyrim
Splatoon in there.
Splatoon, maybe Splatoon 2 was shown.
Skyrim for sure. I definitely remember Skyrim.
I think like NBA 2K was there.
Yikes.
There was maybe another game or so, but I think in terms of Nintendo stuff, the big one was Mario Odyssey, and I could totally see them doing that again here with Switch 2 and having whatever 3D Mario is next. Is that Mario Odyssey 2? Is it something completely different? I have no clue. Who cares, right? We know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I want them to do an Odyssey 2. I don't really care, honestly. I think Odyssey 2 would be amazing, but a new 3D Mario, whatever they cook up, I think it's going to be awesome.
Same. That would get me so hyped. I mean, this is going to get, if they send the most boring Nintendo employee they can to stand on stage, hold this up, above his head for 30 seconds, and then walk off stage and don't show us a single game, I will still pop off. So if you show me 3D Mario, I'm going to lose it. All right, we got another comment here from... Oh, sorry, Randy. You ready to go on?
I was going to say, in terms of games, like, we can move on to the next one, but I could see Metroid Prime 4 being also shown alongside of it, because I think it is going to be a cross-gen game. So
yeah, I do too. Donkey Kong, we get a new Donkey Kong. We could get Silk Song.
Dude, if they showed it alongside Silk Song, that would just be... crazy. Not even that I'm that interested in Silk Song, but I know that would literally blow up the internet if it's like Switch 2 and Silk Song's there.
Here's what's going to happen. Okay, I just wrote this for Nintendo, so go ahead and poach this, Nintendo. That's fine. At the end of the presentation, whoever's speaking, they're closing out the presentation. Right, it's over. We'll see y'all next time. Get home safe. Out of nowhere, Reggie, right, comes out of nowhere with the steel chair. Bang. Drops him, says one more thing, pulls a Tim Apple, says one more thing. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, yeah.
Well, maybe I'll tell you later.
I'm so confused right now. I'm so confused. I have no clue what you're getting at with this. Look, I can only hear you. I can't see you. So you got to understand, like, some physical humor does not come across to me.
It's okay, man. The moment's over.
The moment's over. For the people watching, hopefully that whatever Daniel did, I hope that pays off.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a physical humor kind of moment.
Oh, okay.
I just think it ended up being a really bad joke. But I'm glad I told it on the internet.
Yeah, I'm glad you really sold that.
All right. Next comment you got from Plague Doctor. Hit us with Plague Doctor, Randy.
This is from Plague Doctor, who says, I don't think Nintendo would rush out the announcement just because it was leaked on Reddit.
Maybe
and
not.
I agree. I don't think they would rush it out.
I think they would
really
just do it because they already wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, we know that apparently they filmed the commercial for it. They've already filmed the thing. So now it's got to be put together, edited. I don't know how quick the turnaround is on that.
Yeah, me neither.
The person who announced it or said that they had done it said probably 1 to 6 weeks, and that was probably a week ago. So we're it could be any day now. It could be any time in the next few weeks.
This is such a funny thing to be supposing on. We're sitting here wondering say they did film this within the past week. How long would it take Nintendo to edit this? I don't know. 1 to 6 weeks, sure. Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no clue. I assume they have to have a pretty quick turnaround because they've got actors and stuff. I'm sure they're under NDAs, but still they've had it in their hands. They've played with it. They've, filmed this thing. So, I mean, the leaks are going to happen. In fact, we've already seen it. It's happening. They're in a race now against leakers because if this thing's in production, which apparently it is, we have people who have it in their hands. They're filming commercials with it. We have developers who are developing games for it. They're a race against the clock. If they want to have the reveal, they've kind of already missed their moment, but if they really want to have the reveal before it completely gets out there and it's just everywhere, they need to do it as quick as possible. But again, does Nintendo do anything because, something got leaked? I don't think so. I think they're going to do it on their own terms no matter what.
Yeah, same. I mean, Nintendo, they haven't done anything that anybody told them to do in quite some time, it seems like. Anytime it's what we're calling for, we always say Nintendo, they say so-and-so does what Nintendo don't, right? I'll tell you what Nintendo don't do is rush things out because of a Reddit leak.
Yeah, I agree with this. I don't think they're going to rush it out, but I still think that it was planned. I don't know. It's so hard to say, we've gotten to the point where leaks and rumors, you can almost tell the real ones from the fake ones, because if they're real, it's everyone comes out and is yeah, that's what I'm hearing too,
Right.
all the industry insiders. So it's very quickly, it's very easy to back up rumors and say these leaks and rumors are legit. And so we kind of have a history of knowing which ones are real and which ones aren't. And the kind of rumors going around is that they are planning on announcing it sometime in the near future. So I don't know. It's just really tough to tell.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited either way. But we do have one more comment here. From Air Force X, who said they're not going to cut into their holiday sales by announcing a new system. They'll announce it next spring. And that's something that I've seen people say pretty often. Basically, the longer we go without an announcement, the closer we get to the end of the year, and that's what people say. And I don't really know where I fall on that, honestly, because on a surface level, that does kind of make sense to me, that you wouldn't want to cut into your holiday sales. I guess, and I hear some people say that they don't think they would, and I don't know if I agree with that either. So I'm not sure where I land on this.
Yeah, I don't either. There's a couple different ways to look at this. I think that, honestly, the thing that makes the most sense is for them to wait and announce it in January. Because then they don't cut into their holiday sales at all, and they have really no reason to announce it right now. They just don't. They don't need to push, it's not like they need to build hype to sell software to get people excited about it. They just don't. They don't need it. So it kind of makes the most sense in the world for them to wait until the holiday season's over, sell as many Switch units you can, sell all those special Switch lights that are coming out for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Yep.
Try to push as many units as you can and just get through the year and then start January off with a bang, announce it in January, release it in a few months later, 3-4 months later.
Yeah. Well, as much as I would love to start January off with a bang. I would even more so, obviously, as Heck is saying live, I'm excited. I would love to hear the announcement now. But I agree with you. Like, I don't really see why they wouldn't wait until after the holiday. And I don't know what they have to gain from not doing that necessarily. So why is everybody telling me that they're not going to do that?
That they're going to announce it like soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is everybody thinking this, including us, if it makes more sense to do it next year?
It just makes more sense for them to wait. But at the same time, if it's fully backwards compatible, and that's something we didn't really talk about earlier when we were looking at the pictures, we know that there is a cartridge flap, and it looks to be exactly the same as like the one that's on the Switch OLED.
Yeah.
So odds are it will be backwards compatible. And if that's the case, is it really going to slow down sales that much? Because I'm not so sure. It might a little bit.
Well,
but
I want the Switch to pass the PS2. So I want them to move as much hardware as possible.
Do you think Nintendo cares about passing the PS2?
No.
I mean, like, sure, they probably think, oh, that would be cool if we had the best selling console of all time. But are they going to just hold off on putting out their next system just to do that? I don't think so. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I don't think they're going to hold off on putting it off any longer than they already are.
All right. Okay.
That they would just maybe postpone an announcement. But I don't necessarily think it's their motivation. I just think that would be really cool.
It would be cool.
As a fan of the Switch. And I do agree that if it's backwards compatible, they might still sell games, But will it hurt their, like, hardware sales? I would almost say it would have to. But this far into the Switch's life cycle, like, at some point, are you still prioritizing that?
Well, and that's another thing is, like, this far into the Switch's life cycle, who are the people that are still buying Switches right now? It's mostly two types of people. Number one is the hardcore fans who are buying their like 5th, 6th Nintendo Switch because they get all the special editions when they come out. So that's not going to stop just because they announce another console, right?
No.
Because the people who want that, that new Echoes of Wisdom Switch, they're going to buy that no matter what.
Yep.
And then the second type of people that are still buying Nintendo Switches right now are the extreme casuals who do not keep track of gaming news and who are just buying, the Nintendo system for their kid for, a holiday, or they're buying it for them. They're buying, something like that. They're so casual. They have no clue. They probably wouldn't even know that a new system had been announced. So it may not affect either groups of those people that are still buying Switches, because the people who are in the know, who want looking forward to what Nintendo's putting out, they've already got their system. I don't think there's anybody holding out being like, I was thinking about getting a Switch, but I think there's a Switch 2 coming out soon, and I just think I'll wait on that instead. There may be some of those people, but probably not nearly as many as would make a dent in the sales.
Well, yeah, so that was a lot, but I do think I agree with you. And also, if somebody's about to buy a Switch right now, you want to sell them games.
Yes.
Well, it would probably be better for you to have the option to sell them Switch games and games for the successor to the Nintendo Switch. So if you announce your console now, and it's going to blow up, everybody's going to hear about it. Maybe those people who would buy a Switch this holiday season are going to be like, no, I'm going to buy a Switch 2, early next year or whenever they release it. And now they can buy, potentially double the library of games. So that might be a win overall for their pocketbooks, just not so much for the record books.
Yeah, you might be right, and I really don't know. I really don't know like how much it would hurt or help them. Obviously, they announced the Switch in like September. Before it came out the year later, but that was during the Wii U era, and I think they had pretty much given up on selling Wii U's, just period. But I don't know. There's also that thing of being like, when a console is reaching the end of its life, there is kind of a rush of people to try to buy it who hadn't bought it before just so they can have it for the collection, or because it's like it's ending, so they kind of like, oh, I want one before it ends. Like, I really don't know. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that.
True.
We saw that with the 3DS. I know when the 3DS was announced to be, going away, I was like, ooh, I think I do want a 3DS. I haven't had one yet. Let me get one. I saw that with PS4, people going out and buying PS4s and Xbox Ones at the end of their life just because they wanted to have it before it went away. So, I don't know.
Well, maybe they'll get a little surge there at the end either way then.
But usually those things go on discount right at the end of their life, and I kind of don't think the Switch is going to do that.
You don't think they're ever going to discount the Switch?
No, I kind of don't.
To sell the last few ones?
They might finally do it, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I love us kind of right now. We're in the just total who knows what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I like this stage because once we hit the we know, it's usually a little more disappointing. Like we were with the PS5 Pro, for example. We just went through that.
True.
Once we found out, we were like, oh, this is a little more disappointing than I was wanting.
Yeah, and I will say, Nintendo does give me maybe more uncertainty than maybe some other console manufacturers would about what would the next console be. Now, obviously, all the leaks we looked at make it sound like it's exactly what I want, but I don't know yet. I don't know what Nintendo says yet, and that is a little scary. But at the same time, I was watching Arlo's video today about it, and he kind of summed it up nicely because he was doing Nintendo stuff on the internet when the first Switch came out, right?
Yeah.
Which I would like to reiterate is the only Switch. And he was talking about how leading it up to that, everybody was like, Nintendo's low right now. Nobody was expecting anything revolutionary, and ended up exceeding everyone's expectations. And now it's like everybody feels pretty safe and secure that whatever Nintendo does right now is going to be pretty good. At least we're hoping, and we think it's going to sell like crazy, regardless. So it's a different place, and we weren't doing gaming stuff on the internet then either. So it is fun. It's a fun time right now, but I'm kind of ready for it to be over. I'd kind of like to see it.
Oh, I would too, but yeah, it is definitely a fun time. But the next thing, we'll get to talk about the games. That'll be the next thing that comes around. Because once we know what it is, it's like we'll start supposing could this game come? Could we see this game be ported over? Because all these games that haven't been ported to Switch because it wasn't powerful enough, all of a sudden we have all these new opportunities. We may get these huge games being ported over. You brought up GTA 5 earlier, and that's a great example. We could very well see GTA 5 there. Who knows what games we could see get ported?
I'll tell you what we could see. You know what Reggie's one more thing was going to be, Randy?
What was it going to be?
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't have one as I was telling the joke. But
really? Okay. So I thought maybe you had something, and I was just like, it fell.
Well, it fell flat because when I got to the climax of the joke, I just couldn't follow through. But I now know what it would be.
Okay.
It would be GTA 6.
Oh, GTA 6.
That would be the one more thing game.
That would be.
We've talked about that before. That would be the worst place to play the game, and it would be exactly where I play the game.
GTA 6. If they have an announcement and they show GTA 6 running on it, it will literally break the internet. There will be it's going. The whole internet's going down across the world.
I'll have to leave work early. I'll be sick.
Yeah,
I'll be sick. I won't be able to teach.
What if it happens? I mean, what if it happens?
That's why I have sick day. Oh, I don't know, man. That'd be crazy.
I mean, because we're thinking PS5 games might be some PS5 games could be there.
Sure.
So why not GTA 6?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Why not, right? I mean, it could be there. It could happen.
Come on, Reggie. Come through, Reggie. All right, Randy. I love talking about the Switch. I could literally do this for another hour.
Yeah.
But we do have another topic. Are we ready?
But before we do that, guys, I want to let you guys know about our Discord server. Look, we would love for you to join our Discord server. It's a place just hang out and talk with people, some like-minded gamers. We chat video games. We put all these polls up and we talk about them there. But it's also a great place to see when we go live. But also if you just have anything cool happening in your gaming world and you want to share it, People are always love to see what you have to say. And, we talk about it. It's really fun.
It is very fun. We'd love to see you over there.
Yeah, there's an invite link in the description of this podcast.
That's right. So, Randy, our third and final topic today is, again, about Nintendo. But maybe painting them in a slightly less positive light. Because not only does Nintendo make killer games, that's really what they're known for. They're Marios, they're Donkey Kongs, they're Zeldas. They're also known for their prowess in the courtroom. And they are dispatching the Nintendo Ninja lawyers once again, and they're coming after Pocketpair, the makers of Palworld.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So essentially, they put out a lawsuit. You would think that they would be filing a lawsuit for copyright infringement because Palworld has seemingly taken some very heavy inspiration in the use of their pals who playing the game. People just call them Pokemon.
Yeah, because they are.
Some of them look almost identical, like almost. So you'd think it would be that copyright. No, apparently this is not copyright. This is a what is it? It's actually
it's a patent infringement.
That's patent infringement. And so that means that this lawsuit is not over, like the images of the pals.
Yeah.
And instead, it has something to do with the gameplay, the actual gameplay mechanics and the gameplay loop of Palworld.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
It is bizarre because one of the first things that we said, and probably that most people said when they played this game, is this does not play like Pokemon because it's a very heavily crafting-centered game. Well, that's the main reason, is that it's a heavy crafting game. But I think I saw some people supposing online that this may be related to the fact that you do catch the pals by throwing pal spheres, which is remarkably similar to a Pokeball. So I guess that makes sense that would fall under, the actual gameplay as opposed to something more artistic or character design related.
Yeah, and I think that that could be it. That very well could be it, because the PAL spheres are obviously the same thing as a Pokeball. That's an idea. It's not just like, well, I shouldn't even say like it's a gameplay idea that is very specific to Pokemon, and it does feel a little iffy to say like we're just going to use that exact same concept and you use it for our game that is obviously, superficially looks like Pokemon, and then now we're doing the exact same gameplay mechanic to capture the Pokemon or the pals.
Yeah.
Like that's where it does get a little iffy, and it very well could be that, or it could be multiple things. There could be more things beyond just that.
Yeah, I mean there are probably some other things that they took from the Pokemon franchise. Heck, gave us a live comment here saying it also doesn't stutter and drop frames like a Pokemon game. So that's something that they're not being sued over, because they clearly did not take that game mechanic from Pokemon.
Yeah. We have another comment here from Dan, old Grizzled Dan, who said apparently Nintendo holds patents on a lot of different game mechanics, but doesn't do anything about it a majority of the time. So this seems petty to me. And here's my thought: is that I think most of the time they wouldn't do, if this is true, that they hold patents for a lot of different gameplay mechanics, but normally they don't. If someone like copies them, they don't worry about suing them. I think one of the big problems with Palworld is that not only have they taken some gameplay mechanics directly from Pokemon, they've also taken the imagery, it looks like Pokemon. It has a very similar art style. They genuinely look like Pokemon.
Right.
So I think at that point, it may seem like a step too far. And there may be some consumers who are genuinely confused about what Palworld is. And it could potentially hurt, I don't know how much it actually would, but I could see an argument being made by Nintendo that it hurts the Pokemon brand, that people are looking at this and they're thinking it's Pokemon. They're seeing things like, the Pokeballs being thrown to capture the Pokemon. They associate that with Pokemon, and they know what it is. They think they're going into buying this because they think it's some sort of Pokemon game because they've built up faith over generations or over decades with knowing what Pokemon is, and they know what kind of games they are. And Palworld isn't that.
Right. And
So I
Palworld
could
has
see
some. It has some things in it that they probably don't want associated with Pokemon, like the whole Pokemon with gun things or with guns thing.
Yeah, totally.
Clearly, that's
totally.
not a Nintendo thing.
Yeah.
But also, and this is completely like me practicing like redneck law here.
Right.
But all the things you just described sound to me like it would be a copyright infringement, not a patent. But you could maybe make the case either way. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could be. It very well could be. It may be that the
Things about like being harmful to the brand and such. Like I feel like that would fall under some sort
Under
of copyright
copyright.
protection.
Yeah, you'd think so, but maybe it's just that I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
And maybe that's just what they're thinking, and they know that that won't hold up, and so this is what they're using.
Yeah,
It
maybe
could
the
be that
patented
too.
gameplay is like more straightforward in terms of easy for them to win a lawsuit.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting. Now we did put out a poll
We did.
asking people, like what their take was. We said, "What's your take on Nintendo suing Pocketpair for patent infringement over Palworld?"
That's right. At 12%, people said Nintendo's move is likely justified. At 49%, people said, Nintendo, you're going too far. At 13%, people said, I need more details to decide. And at 26%, people said, I just really don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't know
I
where
mean-
I fall here because I don't care initially. And then I start thinking about it, and then I think I do care. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, Palworld is clearly ripping off Pokemon. But come on, Nintendo. Like that's kind of my train of thought.
Yeah. It's like there's no denying that Palworld. I don't know. I kind of feel like I may be wrong here, but I kind of am in the boat that Palworld would not be even close to as successful as it was or as it is and what it became if it wasn't for what it took directly from Pokemon.
Yes.
Like if it wasn't that, I just don't know that it would have had even an ounce of the success it had. I could be wrong about that because we'll never know. But I kind of feel like, how could it, right?
Yeah. I don't think it would have got me to play it. I mean, I saw this game trailer like 2 years before it came out, and I was hyped immediately. So I wanted to play it, and it was because of the whole like Pokemon like fighting with guns and working in factories and doing all this weird stuff. I was like, I have to play this. But that's exactly how my brain thought about it. Oh, this is
Right.
these are Pokemon working in a factory and shooting guns. Like that's crazy, So yeah, I kind of agree with you. Heck is in the live chat here saying, poor Pokemon. How will they make ends meet?
Yeah. And I saw so many comments from people being like, look, they're so big, Pokemon and Nintendo, like it's so big and Pokemon just does their fans dirty so much that they deserve to have someone rip them off like this and for them to be successful.
Yeah.
Or to not rip them off, but take the ideas and do what Pokemon didn't. Like just do it right.
Do what Nintendo don't
Right. Yeah, exactly.
to stay on brand here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's super tough. I mean, like I've seen a lot of people say that, and I'm definitely in the camp of I need more details. I need to know exactly what, because we don't know what the suit's for. We know that it's patent infringement. We don't know exactly what patents. We suppose it could be the Pokeball thing. I don't know.
Palsphere.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
but
Dan's got a live chat here who said they only did this after the game came out and was successful when it was in development for years, and they could have filed something at any point while it was in development. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, why wait this long to do it if you're going to do it? That's the part that kind of has me landing on being like, damn it, Nintendo, like, can't you just be cool for once?
I mean, like, if they wait, see, the game is, if it's uber successful, that just means they can sue them for more money. That's whereas if it wasn't
I guess.
successful, they may not be able to get as much money out of them.
True.
I'm just kidding with that. But I mean, like, who knows,
I don't know. It feels a little dirty, but I got to be objective here, and I do think that the inspiration, to put it lightly, is clear. So yeah. I was surprised that something like this didn't happen sooner. I guess by now I kind of felt like it was safe. So
yeah, we I think it came out in January, so we're talking about 8-9 months later that this lawsuit drops. So I don't know. It's interesting. Well, we have some comments here on this, and maybe we can continue the conversation here. The first one we have is from the Glitch Counter, who says, the fact the suit is not copyright infringement is all you really need to know. The entire concept of patenting gameplay mechanics is BS. But I can't think of anything Nintendo has to claim on that they haven't allowed another company to get away with. Nintendo are grasping at straws here.
Maybe. We just don't know. The problem is we don't know what they're suing them for specifically. So
yeah,
it's really hard to make a call.
And maybe it's like, say they have let other people get away with certain, taking gameplay mechanics, but they're not here. Maybe it's the combination of, what could be like potential copyright infringement on top of, having the patented gameplay also infringed upon. Maybe it's just like the 1-2 punch that finally made Nintendo want to move. All we know, Nintendo is very litigation happy. They'll sue about anything.
And they've got enough money to win is the problem.
Yeah, and I don't see Palworld winning this. I really don't.
I don't either.
I don't even know that it matters what it is. I think we all know that Palworld has taken things from Pokemon that maybe they shouldn't have. Maybe they flew a little too close to the sun. I'm not saying that that they shouldn't be allowed to do that, because I think a world would be better if we just would let people do their creative things, and if they can do it better, hey, they did it better, but yeah, that's not the world we live in. And legally, Palworld and Pocketpair probably did fly a little too close to the sun.
Yeah, and yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And like you said, that's not the world we live in. We also don't live in Japan. And not only do we not have a good understanding of United States patent law, we definitely don't know anything about patent laws in Japan. So just like Dan is saying here, the Tokyo court stance on patent suits could be way different than what we even think we know. So it's we don't know. We don't know, guys.
Yeah, we really don't know. I think it is unfortunate that a company like Pocketpair could come in and say, look, we're going to do Pokemon, but we're going to give the fans the things they want. Pokemon fans have grown up and maybe they want a more mature take on Pokemon. They said, look, we're going to deliver that to you, because obviously Pokemon's not going to do it. It's kind of sad that Nintendo comes in, sues them for it. And I really don't suspect that. Who knows? You never know what could happen, but I kind of don't see Palworld coming out of this unscathed. It kind of brings me into this next comment we have from Wyatt Went Wacko. Can you hit us with that one, Daniel?
I certainly can. Wyatt said, I want to know the patents. I think Palworld is creatively bankrupt, and many of their designs were outright stolen or take key parts of Pokemon, and I think it's bad. That, however, may not be patents, so I'd like to know what they're suing over. That's what I'm saying. I'm not surprised they're suing Palworld. Just tell me why.
Yeah, and like I was saying, Palworld is, I think, going to have to change something. Obviously, we're going to have to find out what this is. It might be that they can adapt. I don't think they're going to come out of this unscathed. In some ways, it's going to hurt them, whether it's financially, definitely financially, because they're going to have to go, no matter what, they're going to have to pay for this, lawsuit. And they say they are going to fight it, but they've got this lawsuit they have to do. But then they're going to probably have to change their game if they want the game to remain up, if Nintendo wins this. So they may have to change the PAL spheres. They may have to change the fact that the PALs are kept in a little computer, that's stored the same way that they are in Pokemon.
Forgot about that.
There may be some changes that have to happen in the game, and I don't know what that means for the future of the game, and that's a bummer for the people who are currently playing the game, and who knows? The future of Palworld is kind of up in the air right now.
It is. And we got a live comment here from Heck who said, throw a Pal Cube.
Right, Pal Cube.
Could be a Pal Pyramid too,
Maybe they just throw out traps, you just throw out a trap. and they just get caught in a trap.
Tim also uses balls in a computer. I wonder if they'll do the same. That's another Pokemon, inspired game that I've heard of that was around before Palworld. Tim.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't really know much about it. I don't really know anything about it.
It's a Pokemon clone from what I heard, but does some, modern sensibilities, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I have no clue. It'll be really interesting to see what the future of Palworld is, but obviously, I'm just going off gut reaction, my gut feeling. I don't see Palworld coming out of this unscathed. I really don't.
Well, you know that they say, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And as this last comment so eloquently points out, Colin Jackson says, Palworld deserves to be sued.
Yeah, I didn't see this sentiment come up very much. I saw more of the other that like Nintendo, it was very much like screw Nintendo. They've got so much money. Why would they? This is very petty. You can see from the poll results earlier, most of the people think Nintendo's going too far with it.
Right.
But then you have some people who think like Palworld deserves it. Like that they really did steal, essentially ideas and concepts from Pokemon, and they're just blatantly, using it.
Yeah. Well, I do think the whole thing is a little Richard Petty. I certainly agree with that. And Nintendo's got a history of that. Like, Nintendo will copyright strike somebody's YouTube video over using, gameplay of a Nintendo game playing on a Switch just because the video itself happens to be about emulation. Like, this has happened more than once, So Nintendo's going to do what Nintendo's going to do. And they've got enough money and lawyers to probably pull it off, especially against somebody like Palworld or Pocketpair.
Yeah. We have a live comment here from Dan who says, I wonder what Nintendo's end game is. Money, shutting down the game. I don't know that it's money because, Nintendo is the largest corporation in Japan. They're the biggest, most successful. So Pocketpair, who's also based out of Japan, I don't think they're worried about getting their money. And I don't know that they necessarily want... Maybe they do want the game shut down. In my mind, I think all of it, whether it's, they were talking about this or like your example you just brought up, Daniel, of emulation. I think they're all about protecting their brand and making sure that when people want to play a Nintendo game, that when they do that, it's by purchasing products from Nintendo. And I think they see Palworld as a potential way of people wanting to play a Nintendo-like game. And they look at Palworld and think, ooh, I want to play Pokemon. And they put their money into a company that's not going to Nintendo,
Yes, Nintendo, they do care about protecting their brands. And they have some really iconic and valuable brands. But maybe the most important thing that they're protecting is that when you interact with one of those brands, you're paying them.
Yeah, and it's on their terms.
Yes,
you know what I
mean? This is not an emulation segment, but the problem that Nintendo, with that approach is that they don't offer, a way for you to pay them for everything that you might want to play. So, that kind of feeds into the whole emulation thing. But this is not one of those situations.
No.
So,
and I could see an argument being made, and I brought this up earlier, that there's some brand confusion. That you could look at this and think that it's a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think Nintendo likes that.
It doesn't seem patent related, though, to my feeble understanding.
No, but maybe like Dan brought up earlier, I think we missed the comment or we didn't read it, but it's like maybe they think that a patent suit would be easier to win in court. It might be the thing that is easier to do than a copyright case. Because I think that to be like copyright, I think that some of these pals, although they're obviously very inspired by Pokemon, there's like no one that you can't deny it. You can't be like, no, they're actually pretty unique. Some of them are, but a good bit of them are. You can just put the two. You can put the Pokemon that it was inspired by next to you. And you're like, oh yeah, that's obvious. They just like took the exact design and changed it a little bit.
Obviously.
So I don't know. I do think that. Nintendo sees this as something that they don't like. They're like, we gotta get rid of this or stop this because this could potentially hurt the brand of Pokemon.
Oh yeah, and I think they're going to sweep the leg. I think they're going to go for the jugular. I think they're going to stomp a mud hole and walk it dry, and that's what I'm afraid of. And
Yep. I think so
I kind
too.
of hope that doesn't happen just because I'm rooting for the little guy. I can't help it.
Yeah, you can't help but root for the underdog. And I think it's cool that Palworld came in and did something that obviously Nintendo, or this thing about, we talk about Nintendo and Pokemon. We got to keep in mind, like, Nintendo owns a large stake in, like, the Pokemon Company, and they own, like, they have some ownership of the Pokemon IP, but they don't create the Pokemon games. So, at least
Right.
not directly. So there is, it gets a little
Sure.
complicated.
I agree. It's way too complicated for us. We don't know nothing about this. I mean,
No, we really don't.
all right,
right,
Randy.
y'all.
You got anything else about Pocketpair?
No.
Okay. Well, that's perfect then. Guys, I do want to take a moment to tell you, if you enjoy our podcast and you find it within your heart and your pocketbook to support us in an additional way by becoming a podcast member, we film a bonus episode every week. We do it right after we finish rolling on the regular podcast. And today we're going to be talking about these new fancy PlayStation 30th anniversary special editions with the controllers and the portal and the system itself. So if you want to hear our takes on that, maybe become a podcast member. And if you do, we want to shout you out. So here's our current podcast members, and we just appreciate the hell out of you.
Yeah, thank you guys for keeping the podcast alive. And like Daniel was saying, if you wanted to check out that bonus episode, you just become a podcast member and you'll be there. And of course, you get shouted out at the end of every podcast as well. So you guys are the best.
That's right. Thank you again.
All right, y'all. I think that's the end of it. So until next time, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
And this has been Gaming Gig.
Peace out.